Hi Booktube, it's Amy. So it's time for my Friday reads, and it seems like Friday was just yesterday. Given the amount of reading I've done, I've dipped into a few different books here and there. The main one being the Journals of Dorothy Wordsworth that I talked a little bit about last week. So Dorothy Wordsworth is, of course, the sister of English Romantic poet William Wordsworth. And Dorothy kept a journal throughout her life, including the time period, actually a series of time periods where the Romantic poet Coleridge lived in the same area and at points in time even the same cottage with the Wordsworths. And so I've made it through the Elphoxton Journal, which is the first journal to be published here, and it's frankly not very interesting. The entries are extremely short, sometimes not more than a sentence or two, and really all she's saying here is it was an uneventful evening, or she'll say walked with William, Coleridge came to tea. There's actually one where she says uneventful evening, and there's another one where she says I don't recall anything about this day. And so I get the impression that she perhaps wasn't always writing these entries on the day that they happened. At times she would realize, oops, I forgot to write all this week. I'm just going to sort of fill in the days after the fact. But so for instance here, when we move on to the Grasmere Journal, it gets a lot more interesting. So this is the period of 1800 to 1803. And her entries get longer, and she is more concerned with describing the people they met, the stories these people told them, perhaps where they walked that day, what came in the mail that day. And it's a lot more than simply Coleridge came to tea. So for instance, maybe I'll read you the first entry here. May 14th, 1800, which was a Wednesday. WM, so WM is the short form that she typically uses for William. Sometimes she spells out his full name, sometimes she just puts WM. And the same thing with Coleridge. Sometimes Coleridge is simply C throughout these journals, and sometimes she writes his full name. William and John set off into Yorkshire after dinner at 2:30, cold pork in their pockets. I left them at the turning of the Lowood Bay under the trees. My heart was so full that I could hardly speak to W when I gave him a farewell kiss. I sate a long time upon a stone at the margin of the lake, and after a flood of tears my heart was easier. The lake looked to me, I know not why, dull and melancholy, and the weltering on the shores seemed a heavy sound. I walked as long as I could amongst the stones of the shore, the wood rich in flowers, a beautiful yellow, palish yellow flower that looked thick, round, and double, and smelt very sweet. I suppose it was a ranunculus. Crowfoot, the grassy-leaved, rabbit-toothed white flower, strawberries, geraniums, scentless violets, anemones, two kinds, orchises, primroses, the heckleberry very beautiful, the crab coming out as a low shrub. Met a blind man driving a very large beautiful bull and a cow. He walked with 2 sticks. Came home by Clapper's Gate, the valley very green. Many sweet views up to Rydale Head, when I could juggle away the fine houses, but they disturbed me even more than when I have been happier. One beautiful view of the bridge without Sir Michael's. Sate down very often, though it was cold. I resolved to write a journal of the time till W and J return. And I set about keeping my resolve, because I will not quarrel with myself, because I shall give W.M. pleasure by it when he comes home again. At Rydale, a woman of the village, stout and well dressed, begged a halfpenny. She had never, she said, done it before, but these hard times. Arrived at home with a bad headache, set some slips of privet. The evening cold, had a fire. My face now flame-colored. It is 9 o'clock. I shall go to bed soon. A young woman begged at the door. She had come from Manchester on Sunday morn with 2 shillings and a slip of paper, which she supposed a banknote. It was a cheat. She had buried her husband and 3 children within a year and a half, all in one grave, Burying very dear, paupers all put in one place, 20 shillings paid for as much ground as will bury a man. A stone to be put over it, or the right will be lost. 11.6 each time the ground is opened. Oh, that I had a letter from William. And so that is her very first entry in the Grassmere Journal. But she does return to some of those shorter entries. So for instance, on May 15th, which is the Thursday, she just says, a coldish, dull morning, hoed the first row of peas, weeded, etc., etc. Sat hard to mending till evening. The rain, which had threatened all day, came on just when I was going to walk. And it's very mundane. She talks about drinking tea, going for walks, walking around the lake, and sometimes she mentions what she's been reading. So she'll mention that she's reading Shakespeare. At one point she says she was reading Hamlet. At another time she is reading Boswell's Life of Johnson, which I thought was quite interesting because I read that earlier this year. And overall, I'm just immensely enjoying it. I actually had a lovely day this past Sunday morning around 11:30 or noon. I walked down to a local park, found a park bench, sat under the tree with this volume of her journals, and just read for about an hour, and got startled by the fact that it was an oak tree. I just sat down, not really registering the fact I was sitting under an oak tree, and I'm sitting there reading, and something sort of zips past my ear. I look up for a moment confused what it is, and I realized it was an acorn that had fallen from the tree, bounced off the asphalt path, and sort of rocketed past my head. And there were several falling. I'm assuming some squirrel or something was up raising a ruckus in the tree, because all of a sudden there were these green acorns that didn't look ripe enough to be falling, just bouncing off the path. And very nice day in the park, a little bit cooler, but overall a good day for reading. So that was the main event this past week. I did get a couple of books in the mail. Somebody on here was talking about Sir Walter Scott recently, and I realized I've never read anything by Sir Walter Scott, so of course I got on Books and I ordered myself a couple of volumes. So this is his novel Rob Roy, which is just in this inexpensive Everyman Library edition. Came without the dust jacket. It was, I think, $3 or $4 US off of Books, plus $3 or $4 in shipping. And so let's see, that's about $6 to $8 US. So I'm going to guess my total came to $14 or $15 Canadian, which isn't bad at all with the exchange rate. And I have always been a fan of these Everyman Library editions, especially when you take off the dust jacket. I almost prefer them without their dust jackets. They've got nice paper, good font, always a pleasure to read. And so yeah, I've got Rob Roy here in the Everyman Library edition. And then I found this old hardback as well of The Fair Maid of Perth. It says it's an Oxford edition. I don't know if you can see there on the spine. We do have what looks like Scottish thistle in the boards here. And this one's neat because we've got somebody's inscription or dedication in the front here from April of 1930. And it does look as though somebody might have had a slip of paper or a card tucked in here, just because we've got a yellowed pattern that doesn't match up with anything on the boards here. So The Fair Maid of Perth, or St. Valentine's Day. Nice frontispiece here of Perth, and this is just an edition from 1911 with 34 illustrations, Oxford University Press. And the illustrations aren't too too impressive, but it was a nice, inexpensive copy to pick up. Oh, here we go. A Suit of Fluted Armor. So as I said, never read the novels of Sir Walter Scott. Not really sure what these ones are about. I just sort of picked a couple of inexpensive books from Abe and went ahead and ordered them. And I will be digging into these soon. Probably not in the next week, since I am going to be away from the apartment for about a week, and I'm traveling quite light without any books that I would be distressed to lose, which is why I picked up a couple of light reading books for travel, which, if need be, I can abandon somewhere. So I ordered The Cat Who Knew Shakespeare, which is a mystery novel. And although I've never read any of these Cat Who books by Lillian Jackson Braun, I do recall my mom reading a lot when I was a kid, and her dad, my grandpa, reading quite a bit as well, and they'd pass the books back and forth. And I think they've both read them all several times, and they no longer read them, but I was looking for something cozy, something fun, just to read while traveling, and so I picked up this. So there's something rotten in the small town of Pickaxe, at least to the sensitive noses of newspaperman Jim Quillerin and his Siamese cats, Coco and Yum Yum. An accident has claimed the life of the local paper's eccentric publisher, but to Quillerin and his feline friends it smells like murder. They soon sniff out a shocking secret, and when Coco snoops into an unusual edition of Shakespeare, it may prove catastrophic, because somewhere in Pickaxe, a lady loves not wisely but too well, a widow is scandalously merry, and a stranger has a lean, hungry look. The stage is set for Quillerin, Coco, and Yum Yum, and the second act of Murder Most Meow. So that sounds fun. And then I picked up an Agatha Christie as well. This is a Miss Marple mystery, The Body in the Library. And I think I may have read this one years ago, I'm not sure. But I know for sure I've seen a TV adaptation of this one. This is the one where the family wakes up to find a murdered woman in their library. And they don't know who she is or how she got there, but of course they are suspected of it. So these are my books for travel, and I'll be taking my trusty Kindle with me as well. I do have a couple of ebooks that I should probably get to reading. But then on a different note, in the next day or two, I'm going to watch a movie I picked up. This is Children of Paradise, directed by Marcel Carne. And I've never seen this one, but it did catch my eye when I was digging around for films to watch online, and I couldn't find it to stream anywhere, so I bought the DVD. And what really drew me to it is its comparison as, you know, the French response to the great American film Gone with the Wind. I guess it's a period piece. It's described as poetic realism reaching sublime heights. Considered one of the greatest French films of all time, a nimble depiction of 19th century Paris's theatrical demi-mode, filmed during World War II. So it follows a mysterious woman, Arletty, loved by 4 different men, all based on historical figures. An actor, a criminal account, and most poignantly, a mime. Yeah, so as I said, never seen this one, but it did catch my eye. I've watched a couple of classic French films recently that I've really loved, and so I thought I would check out one that's considered one of the best. And of course, it has English subtitles, which is how I watch French films. So that is what I'm up to on this Friday. Do let me know in the comments below what you're reading and whether you've read any of the books that I mentioned here.